Reynolds, would you mind saying a prayer, and then I'll do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Dear Lord, bless this evening workshop, that we will impart wisdom and share that and understand our fiduciary duties here tonight. Watch out for our residents that are experiencing tough times, and that includes one of our board members, Mark Miller, and the loss of his wife. Others in our community that are having hard times, and especially with the shutdown, the financial circumstances. Watch over our first responders, our military, and keep us in your heart and close to you in Jesus' name.
Amen. Are you ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you, everybody. All right. We're having a workshop tonight, so thank everybody that came to join us in the audience tonight. And I guess we will go through a couple things. We do have a quorum. We have 5 of the board members here tonight. One of us could not make it. Audio and video recorders are in use, and please fill out the member form sign-up sheet to address the board. It's up in the lobby there. And a special open executive session for candidate approval is going to be November 12th, 2025 at 6 p.m. Proxy and absentee voting set to start December 3rd, 2025 and ends January 7th, 2026 at 4 p.m. I can't believe it's already 2026. How crazy is that? All right, so we'll start with new business. We're going over budgets tonight. We're going to start with the club at Hidden Creek.
Yeah, so I thought I would just kind of set the table first and go over some kind of overall, couple quick items here before we dive into the club's draft budget. The draft agenda for the November meeting, you guys will get that tomorrow. We will not be sending that out tonight, obviously, because we're here. We've been working on the budget, last minute items. So you'll get the draft agenda for November's regularly scheduled meeting tomorrow by close of business. We'll send that out. I did want to reiterate kind of the overall schedule here so everyone can get in their mind how they're going to approach this and move forward here. So we decided to have 2 workshops this year. Tonight's obviously the first one. The second one will most likely be the week of December the 1st, I believe, that first week of December, probably the 3rd or the 4th. We'll do it. We'll send out a text and see what works best for the board members. I think it's a Wednesday or a Thursday that first week of December. So that'll be your second workshop. What we found last year was that with a lot of the decisions to be made, everything kind of went real quick at the end. I think there was some feedback to have an additional one, so that's what we're doing. And then, of course, at the December board meeting, the first vote will be taken on the actual budget, and then final approval will, of course, be at the annual meeting. I have several of my staff here to answer questions that come up on individual line items that I might not be able to answer. So I do thank them for staying here tonight, and they've been working hard on this budget to get it ready. Just a reminder, we're not voting on anything budget related tonight. This is purely just review and questions and discussion. General approach, the way I'm going to go over these budgets, going to go over, not going to go over every single line item. I'm going to go over kind of section by section with the highlights that I think are relevant. Certainly any question, anything you want to stop and discuss, this is an open discussion. Just jump right in, and we'll either get the question answered or have a discussion about it. So it's a completely open discussion tonight. Let's see. I think that might be it. Yeah, I think that was all I kind of wanted to go over. So let's kind of dive in. We're going to do we'll do Hidden Creek first, and then those staff can take off. We'll do Messy, which shouldn't take long at all, and then we'll finish up with the Holly Navarre budget. So your first tab is the Hidden Creek budget. You'll notice that it has a monthly breakout And there's a reason for that. The staff at the club likes to do this monthly projection for budgeting because of the seasonality of their business. You know, Holly and Navarro's business is somewhat seasonal, but really not that much. This business is very seasonal, and it matters where they place their expenditures during the year and where they place their revenue during the year. So that's why you're seeing it that way. Of course, the total is on the right, and that's kind of the numbers we're going to be looking at tonight for 2026. We'll start with revenue. For greens fees, we're showing us the very first line there. We're showing $1,344,675 for greens fees. Of course, that's the biggest revenue item. That's a slightly higher than 2025's number. And what we'll do, I noticed here that we don't have the 2025 number in a column. What we'll do is we'll get that to you guys here. Maybe next week we'll have Kim do that, just so you can see it. It's easier to reference, but you can kind of see what the 2025 number was. We had that during our review, and then this copy doesn't seem to have it on there. But anyway, greens fee is slightly higher than 2025's number was $1,296,000. So I want to kind of spend a minute on that because that's kind of an important revenue projection. There was a couple things that happened in 2025 that were very positive for the course. The first was just generally the weather. It was a really good weather year for the course, which translates to higher rounds. The other unique item was there was 2 nearby competitors that were closed for certain periods of time this summer, which also contributed to some kind of higher than normal rounds, quote unquote normal. So while we projected the greens fees slightly higher, that's kind of the reason why they're pretty close to the 2025 number. The other reason is we continue to look at our pricing on what we're charging, especially on the weekends. You know, we're getting close to a limit of what we can charge. You know,
Right.
we can't charge Sandestin rates. We know that. We're in Navarre, so we're conscious of that pricing. It's something we analyze every year when we do this exercise. So we think that there's been some thought put into this number. We think it's a good figure. Like I said, I wanted to touch on. They want to touch on Sprayfield income. We are projecting that at $114,000, and that's a lower number than last year. And there's really 2 reasons for that. One, with the Eglin project coming online, we think there's going to be some kind of possible reassessment of that, and then also just the to-date cost of what's been spent out there. I believe we're just under $100,000 right now for that item, and we're already in November. So now keep in mind, this is a budget number. There's a board-approved action that would have to happen to change that. So the current board action says the water system will reimburse this, and that still stands. All we're saying is we're trying to get a little more clear for 2026 as we move forward with our big project, and just also reflect what's going on out there. So we've tried to budget that number a little more.
Hey, Jeff.
Go ahead.
Real quick about that. That $114,000, that does not match the Holly Navarre water system budget.
Should.
Oh, it does?
It should.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to ask about that.
Let's let Robert check that real quick. I'm pretty sure we could check
Okay.
that.
Maybe I was looking at the wrong line.
It's in the wastewater. I think we got it. Yeah, it's under.
Right.
Yeah, we'll hit that when we get there. So
Okay.
anyway, so total revenue, $3,077,000, approximately, slightly under 2025 of $3,152,000 for the reasons I mentioned. Next, I'll touch on some expenses. The expenses are split into
Oh, I see.
a couple different categories. First, we'll do the pro shop. Of course, like most of these items, but wages are the biggest cost. We're projecting $458,625 versus the 2025 number of $445,000. And that's another thing I want to say about the approach on this budget is it's more of what I call a fully staffed budget. You know, there's a junior golf pro position, there's a food and beverage position, food and beverage manager. Those positions were not filled in 2025. We projected that those get filled at some time in 2026, I'm sorry. And that's reflected in that number. And that's part of, some of that staffing is part of the reason for the club's good numbers in 2025 is, Trey having to work long hours because of that other position not being there. So that's part of how we got to that number. I do want you to notice that second to last line item, you will see that is the GPS units. We put those in the budget. Those kind of had were a topic of discussion in 2025. They were approved by the board. Then we decided to kind of hold off. Now that now the club had some good results in 2025, and we think it makes sense to move forward with those, especially if we're talking about being a top tier course in the Panhandle. All those courses have that amenity. So we think it's important, and we're hoping we can proceed with that.
I missed what line item that is, Mr.
It's the second one from the bottom on the first page.
On the first page?
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
I was looking for that too. Oh, gotcha.
So moving on to page 2, those are the remainder of the expenses there in the pro shop. After that, you see we have a marketing budget, $10,000. It's the same number we had for 2025. The next expense category, food and beverage. Once again, wages would be the largest item there, and then of course the cost of the goods we sell, the food, the beer, the wine, the liquor. Those are substantial items as well. Same as the comments on the pro shop wages. That assumes we hire a food and beverage manager. The next expense category is maintenance. And once again, you see the wages wages make up about almost half of that budget. And once again, that's kind of a fully staffed number. Haynes has had a position or two open in 2025, which has kind of stretched his guys a little bit. Of course, chemicals and fertilizer, those are items we always need. Try to be efficient and get good quotes, and with our agreements with our vendors on that, keep that reasonable. Let's see. Then moving on to administration. These are a lot of the costs that just are not part of the upkeep of the course or the pro shop. So all the things like your trash, payroll taxes, electricity for the building, things like that. I did want to mention insurance expense. That is the second one from the bottom. You'll see it. We have it budgeted $131,000. That's actually less than the 2025 number of $145,000. But you'll remember that does not include the wind coverage on the clubhouse. So we did save a little bit of money, but we've increased our risk, and it's almost the same. So insurance continues to be a concern. And then flipping to the last page, you can see we start to total this thing up. A total operating revenue of just right around $3,077,000. Total operating expenses $2,731,000 ballpark. Gives us an operating profit $346,240, and then we take out the depreciation amortization, and that gives us that total profit number positive $21,000. So once again, there's probably some conservatism in this, but like I said, with some of the positive things that happened in 25 with the weather and those other courses being closed, we wanted to make sure we didn't get too far ahead on that revenue number.
Are there any capital expenditures planned for 2026?
Yes, the next page is our CIP program. We're going to hit that after we have discussion on this.
Oh, sorry, I'm jumping ahead.
No, you're good.
All right, before we start the discussion here, at the table. I'm gonna call on Mr. Don Linnell real quick, give us some feedback.
Well, I was going to have a question on the CIP too, so I might come back up. But, so there's still a position, fully funded position for pro shop assistant and food and beverage supervisor. True statement, is that what I heard?
In the budget, yes.
Okay, so this will be the third year for the junior assistant and the second year for food and beverage supervisor. Is there a gate? What determines when those people are going to be hired? Is there a gate? I mean, what's the requirement for, okay, let's
Yeah, I think that's a good
let's
question.
pull the chalk and
I
say
think
we're
it's
going to
been
hire them.
You know, number one, and I don't want to speak for Trey, I'll let him speak on this in a minute, but we did get resumes for the food and beverage manager position, and I don't believe we really found one that we thought was a real great fit. And I think we hired one of those people for a more junior position. I believe they're still with us. Is that correct, Trey? Yeah, so that person is still with us, but they were not hired for the role of manager. So I think we got a bunch of resumes. We didn't get a great one. So I think this was winter time of last year, ballpark. So we probably, do plan to go back out and look for that one. The assistant golf pro, I think we just didn't have much momentum to hire that one. I don't know that we did not advertise for that one yet. So I think you've asked for a timeline, and I didn't give you one. But
I'm not asking for a timeline, so I apologize if I wasn't clear. What's going to drive hiring those positions instead of just carrying them as a fully funded?
I think part of what shows they're viable is the money the course has made this year. I think they've shown they can have those positions and cover them financially. That may have been in question before, at least it was in my mind.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
So are you saying, I'll reword what I just heard. As far as you're concerned, come January 1st, based on this year and last year and the previous year, we've proven it's making money. As soon as you get viable candidates, you're open to hire them. Is that what I heard?
If we find somebody we like, that's correct.
What?
We're going to be selective.
I did say viable candidate.
Right, yeah, we don't
Okay.
just want a warm body, we want the right person.
Okay. So you didn't mention it. You mentioned fully funded on the maintenance side too. In the last couple of years, there's been 2 open slots that I don't remember. Certainly one year they weren't, nobody was filled. Maybe this year there was, and I just don't know it. But so that's the same. Is that the same reason they weren't filled before? And is it the same gate to hire them?
Yeah, I'll let Haynes tackle that one.
When one person from food and beverage left, the benefits was transferred to their spouse in my department. So on the tree, all my full-time positions.
Okay, so there's no open slot?
We're trying to tackle it with part-time positions,
Okay,
so we don't do the full benefit.
okay. So I guess I need a better understanding of what, I think you made the statement, there's a fully funded maintenance staff. So what does that mean?
Yeah, I
Are there only
probably
part-time
should
open?
clarify that in the future
Okay.
with a number of full-time and a number of part-time.
Okay.
I don't have that number right now.
Okay. I'm not trying to be an orifice.
No,
Just trying to get.
No, you understand.
That's a good question.
Okay, the next thing is just CIP, so I'll wait till you talk
Okay.
about it.
I think going forward, guys, what we're going to do is we're going to discuss it here at the table and have all the board members chime in, and we'll get through, because we've got 3 different budgets to go through. We'll get through that budget, and then after we finish with one budget, we'll have somebody, if you want to make some statements or questions, and we'll go from there. I did have one thing to say about the marketing. The advertising budget, where we're sitting at, what, 10,000? So if we add the GPS units like we've talked about, I think, in my opinion, I think maybe we should bump that budget up some so that we could make a big splash with that.
One thing we did is we also did not put any GPS revenue. So if we end up
Right.
advertising on that, it generates some revenue, that would go into revenue. We don't have that in here right now, but you're probably right. We probably should find a way to advertise that.
Yeah, I would think at least a couple, $3,000, prices are going up, so that doesn't buy you what it did last year or the year before.
Right.
And having worked in media before, I will say that a press release sent out to media oftentimes prompts
Nothing.
reporters that want to get in on that story and come out and take pictures and do a story on it. So I'm happy to work with anybody who drafts, whichever office does that, to try to do that first, to save some money, but understand your point, Mr. President.
Does anybody have, board members, anybody have any discussion about what Jeff just covered?
Yes, this is my first cycle with this, so I do have some questions for clarification just to establish a basis in knowledge. The membership dues, those are not standard. There's different levels. Is that a true statement?
Yeah.
So if I wanted to have a membership today, would I choose a yearly membership, or could I have a 6-month membership, and how much would it cost?
Well, there's several options. Trey, you want to go over the basic options?
Yes, so there is you have to commit to either 6 months or a year. If you commit to 6 months because you're committing to less time, it is roughly $125 more per month. So that makes it less advantageous for somebody that decides they just want to play during our best months of the year, but they live here year round, to just join during the summer months. But if you're a single person and you want to play year round, it's $325 a month. And that does allow you to walk as much as you like. You get 1 bucket of balls any size per day. If you do decide to ride, it is either $15 or $22 to ride with a cart fee, $9.18. And then we do have a family option. So instead of $325, it's $430 a month. And that allows a family, you and a spouse, kids 21 and younger to live in your household. You come out and walk as much as you want. And then there are cart plans and trail fee options. Cart fee and trail fee options. Trail fee is where you use your own personal cart, one that is approved by the maintenance team to make sure that the tread is correct. It's not going to destroy the golf course out there. It's also not, we don't currently allow gas carts. So that way we don't have any leaks all over the golf course by a machine that's not taken care of by our staff. It's $100 a month if you're a single using your own cart. It's $125 if you're a single using our cart, on top of those other fees I talked about. The family cart plan is $125 a month to use your own cart, and $150 a month if you use our carts.
And then the 6-month plan, single people.
The cart plans are the same as the other plans. It's just the dues portion is higher by roughly $125, and we just, I believe, have a single option on. We don't have a family option.
And the current event rental now, event rentals, it goes up in April, and then it goes up in October. I would have thought Christmas it goes up too, so.
Yes, ma'am. The April and October are typically your best wedding months. And so, it's $3,000 to $4,000 for a wedding typically. And so those months are typically higher. Next April, we have 2 weddings, so I already knew I had $7,000 just in the weddings, plus the $1,500 to $1,800 that we get from the church every month. So I already knew we had roughly $9,000 already in there. And hopefully we can sprinkle in some other events around it. This October, we did just under $10,000, so that's why that number is probably in the same ballpark. We don't currently have any weddings for next October, but we still have time to book 1 or 2. October or December, right now, I do have a quote out there for one of our Saturdays, but the first Friday, the second Friday, and the third Friday are already booked for holiday parties. The second Saturday is booked with a wedding. And then, so I do have the first Saturday, which is hopefully be booked through the rest of this week. And the 21st, I think, is that last Saturday before Christmas. Those are the only 2 Fridays or Saturdays that aren't booked this year with holiday parties, either companies or we have some local military squadrons that are coming out to do their holiday party.
Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, I do have one question as well. I noticed on the Under our water system budget, we have a line item for employee engagement. I'm guessing that's like team building type stuff. But there's not one at the club at Hidden Creek. Should we be,
I have an employee relations on mine.
oh, you
I think
do?
it's just named something else under mine.
Right, it's 2,800.
Okay, all right, thank you. Just named different, okay.
Every day's fun at club.
No, I just think that's important. I mean, I think that's huge to make sure the employees know that they're appreciated.
The group insurance under food and beverage. So it starts out at $880 and then it goes up to $1,750 a month. This is, I guess I'm a little confused.
So I think what it does is it assumes that another person's gonna be hired by April. It's just a way to project a little more tightly throughout the year, especially if you're, you know, the club typically is not very busy in January, February, so the thought on some of these positions is, you know, start that hiring process, but maybe they don't come in until early spring. And that's kind of what those numbers reflect.
And is this paid for the employees, or are they paying for it themselves?
It's the same health plan you approved for the water system.
So the club at Hidden Creek is paying for the health care plan, as I understand it. Is that a true statement? Okay.
That's a true statement.
Okay.
I'm curious why it's double, though. It goes from 880 to 1750.
One person to one
Two single employees per month, it's roughly $800 to $900 per employee.
Okay.
You know, you never know if I'm gonna hire somebody that's single or family plus one, and one of the option that was our best value.
Okay.
And then, Trey, the seminars and the education under maintenance, do you get to travel and go to?
Yes, ma'am. Last week I was at, it's called the Deep South Surf Expo. So it's a 3-day seminar in Biloxi at the convention there. So yes, I do. And then we do a quarterly superintendent meeting at a different course, and we all meet up, have an educational meeting, play golf, and socialize.
Okay. All right, and then my final question would be, in this budget under maintenance, is there any way that we could include an aesthetic upgrade at the entrance on Highway 399?
Well, we're looking at a new sign. I don't know, we really didn't talk about that for the budget, but we are
Yes,
looking at a new sign.
that'd end up being a capital project, but not redoing the sign.
I get the cost, yeah, it probably would match that.
Okay, luxurious green flowers inviting you to come in, spend money, and eat. was kind
Neon
of my
flashing
question.
lights.
That was my question. Inviting folks coming in from east and west driving to say, that this is all that.
I agree, and that's one of the things we talked about, changing the sign, so it actually says the club at Hidden Creek and not the neighborhood.
Right,
But a
right.
sign is different than vegetation and bushes, shrubbery, or flowers, right? Are you eliminating that?
We are keeping it as is until we decide what we want to do with the sign. If we want to update the sign, we'll update everything at once.
Okay, thank you.
New ornamentals and everything, but right now it is the neighborhood's sign.
Right,
Change that.
right, very mundane and dry and drab
Yes.
and
And we met with Holly by the Sea, so they know that's coming.
Yeah.
That change.
thank you.
Yes, it is. And I agree, the green sign, it's lost. You really can't see it driving up, especially at night. It could be better.
I'm going to run through the CIP. So the last sheet for the club's draft budget is their capital improvement plan. It's a 5-year projection. We'll touch on some of the bigger projects for 2026. We do want to do some painting and flooring upgrades in the pro shop. Continuing to level tee boxes, you'll see that's an annual item in the CIP. Still have some cart paths to extend and add to there. We put $20,000 to that in 2026. Biggest project we're looking at for 2026 would be bunker renovation. Essentially the walls or the sides of many of those bunkers out there need attention, and you can only do so much with maintenance. You really have to go in there and rework that bunker with equipment, new sand, etc. So that's what that project is for. Two other big projects on here. Neither one of them is scheduled to hit in 26, but they're worth mentioning. The first one is the bridge on hole number 3. That's a wooden bridge that's experiencing a good bit of, basically it's got a bunch of rotten wood. The supports are starting to get rotten. Not a safety issue yet, but it will become one. So what we have in there now is probably to start the design process for that. We've got a couple different options for what can happen with that bridge. Haven't settled on which one. Some involve permitting issues with DEP. That's a wetland that goes through there, so any impacts to that would require permitting. So we don't have a solution there. We're just recognizing that it's an issue and it's coming up. So we don't know if that has to be done in 27, but it's just to let everyone know we're thinking about it. Similarly, the roof of the clubhouse and cart barn building have been talked about a good bit. We have put funds for some out years on those, 28 and 29. Those would be pretty big cost items. And that's the type of thing we'd want to defray until we, really had to do that. The roof on the clubhouse has had a leak or two, but it's not in horrible shape. We've talked about possibly doing some pressure washing up there, but there's some risk in that too. So anyway, just wanted to note that we know that roof's an issue, and we're trying to account for it in the 5-year CIP.
What is the age on that roof?
I believe it was between 15 and 20, do I recall.
And is there a risk that the insurance company may force us to replace it?
There is, yes, we did talk about that risk. Yes.
Usually 20 years, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
The capital improvement items that were not or are not going to be done in 2025, there's several of them, but what should those be in the 2026 column?
Yeah, we probably should roll those over that didn't get done. I think the part of the patio upgrade did get done, so we'll look. But now answering your question, Mark, is yes. So we'll work on that. It's a good comment.
Yeah, I was going to say the patio. Some of it's already been.
Yeah, we did about half of it, but they want to do some basically some sunshades and some furniture underneath, and we haven't done that part yet. There's also some gutter reworking to be done from that part that was taken down.
That one needs to be updated right there.
Now we won't. You'll see the net. That we did have the netting project in 2025, but we pushed that to 27, so we won't push that into 2026. We're going to push that out. We think the bunker renovation is more important than that netting.
I was curious as to how the roof replacements were broken into 2028 and 2029. Does that mean that the clubhouse is one of those line items and then the cart buildings are another?
I believe that was the intent there, yes.
And which is which?
I would assume the first one is the cart bar and the clubhouse is the larger figure.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Any further questions from the board or further discussion? Let Mr.
Don has some questions on the CIP.
Yep, we're gonna let Mr. Don Linnell come back up.
Apologies for last time. So Don Linnell, 2586 Second Court. And David, I appreciate you letting me talk last time before you guys did. It
Oh, no worries.
just
Yeah.
came up. I was willing to wait, but I appreciate you letting me talk. So on the CIP, what I heard for this year, in particular for the CIP, is bunkers. All of them? I mean, is that the plan? If you can answer, the plan for 2026, is it to finish redoing all the bunkers, half of them? Not all the bunkers, all the ones that are deemed to need maintenance, have washout areas and where the grass doesn't get cut, I guess because we don't have a mower. Pardon me?
It's gonna be all of them.
Okay, so, great, for 2026, okay. I also heard T-boxes and cart paths, but that's not, T-boxes and bunkers, okay. Cart paths, sorry, I don't care. You know, vast majority of us ride carts, so whether we need cart paths is up to you guys. But T-boxes, I mean, you made a comment right at first, we're kind of at the limit of what we can charge. I don't know if that's true, but when we hear people playing nearby places, at least everything I hear, we're still in better shape. We're in better shape than the other places. But you made a comment, we can't charge too much because we're not destined. Okay. Personal opinion, T-boxes have been on there for at least 4 years, because I was on for 3 years and now this one. T-boxes and bunkers and car paths. I mean, if you ever want to get to that point, I mean, the basics have to, there's not much else to complain about out there except the greens. And that's going to be a big number someday, but T-boxes and the bunkers, you want to start charging more and get like Destin. I've not played over there in a long time. I got to believe there's a reason they can charge more. So, and I don't know what at our place it could be besides T-boxes, bunkers, and the greens. So, yeah, I encourage you to please do the T-boxes. Short story. So I'd say within the last 2 months, 2 different times, there's been a couple of T-boxes where the whites are so far back on the T-box, I was on an upslope because it was all the way back in the back. I understand if we have to have it that far back, from time to time you have to, but I don't understand why that ever needs to happen. So I just beg you to do the T-boxes and the bunkers. So that's all.
I think the tee boxes are in the CIP for every year for the next 5 years, so 10,000 a year.
I think he's just saying they've been in there, we haven't made as much.
Yeah, because they were in there this year too, and
Yeah,
there's
we have-
no expense there for
Right,
that, so.
Message received, we got from this thing.
Yeah.
You want me to go back up here and say the final thing about T-boxes and bunkers?
Sure.
I know you can.
We want you to get your exercise today.
Yeah.
Maybe you should sit right there, Don.
Okay, T-boxes and bunkers, and even cart paths. It's going to inconvenience the people like me that are out there. Well, tough. We either get them better or we don't get them better. I just assume be inconvenienced. If you have to make a temporary T-box for us, fine. Personal, a voice of one. Get other people in here to say what they want, but we're going to be inconvenienced someday. Just start doing it.
Right. Thank you, Don. Appreciate that. All right. Now let's move on to Messi.
And I'm gonna let Mr. Phillips cover Messi's budget.
All right, we'll try to make this really quick. Okay, I think everybody's been here long enough to know that we zero budget and pay everyone and make sure we can provide service at cost to Holly and Bar, and then we zero budget. So let's start with the expenses real quick, and I'll just rush kind of down through here. Wages are a little bit lower because we've reduced our labor cost. Also in 2025, you had bonuses in there from 2024, so that caused it to be a little bit higher. All of the payroll taxes, administrative services, group health, 401k, other taxes, license dues, those are things that are just set. Computer expense, we pay for a lot of software, primarily the software we use to draw plans. It's not cheap. That's the majority of that $30,000. Office supplies are what they are. Travel, meals, and lodging, and training conferences. Every other year, we attend one of two large engineering and industry conferences. In this case, next year is WEFTEC. We'll be attending that. There'll be at least 3 of us that attend that. Telephone, vehicle gas, postage, insurance, they are what they are. There's not any real significant change there. Legal expense, Will doesn't get any cheaper.
My budget keeps going down.
Might be 0 next year if we can avoid using you for anything. Accounting is what it is. We heavily advertised for employees this past year, which you see there. We don't anticipate doing that at all next year. So that's gone down. Professional expense and surveying. We keep a master list of work that we have booked. In other words, work that we have a signed contract to do for next year. That work includes a certain amount of professional expenses, which is every other professional service we use besides surveying: architectural, structural, electrical, mechanical. And then the surveying, so those are actually costs. We believe that we're going to have to pay somewhere to get the work done that we have booked for next year. Rent and miscellaneous, they are what they are. Don't anticipate any change there. Depreciation and amortization goes up a little bit. I don't know if we'll have anything coming off there or not, but I assumed we would not, so that it would increase a little bit. So ultimately, we're projecting our total expenses at about $1.2 million. So we have to find the revenue to cover that. We know what hauling of ours needs are generally. That can vary depending on, what Jeff has us do and what development work comes into the office. But generally, we know what it is. It's a little bit decreased from 2025 because some of the big jobs that include the lump sum fees are going away in 2026. That leaves the third-party service revenue, which is the top line number. And you can see we need $890,000 worth of that work to break even. And we have about $770,000 under contract right now.
Nice, nice.
Probably the last 3 years, we have had extraordinary bookings well above the requirement to break even. This is the first year now in about 4 or 5 that the number is actually less, just to tell you how it's been going the last few years. But you can see the majority of it's booked, and I would anticipate we would have plenty of work to get through the year. So with that, the 2 other line items there, interest income is just set on base of what we think we'll have in the bank. And auto reimbursement is, that's what Dale and I pay for the use of trucks.
There you go. So I got one question: is with the addition of the new hire that you guys and payroll is going to go down?
It actually goes down a little bit. And again, part of the reason the difference between those numbers, we try and book bonuses in the same year that they're earned. We didn't do that in 2024, so part of 2024 ended up 2025.
Right. I remember
so the
that.
2025 numbers are skewed a little bit higher, but in fact, our labor costs are a little less.
Okay.
And if anybody has a question about why that is, please ask me later. There's only 7 of us, so if I answer that question in any more detail, we're going to start talking about who makes what.
Right,
so.
right. No, I was just
But
curious.
it's probably pretty obvious to everyone, I think, why that is true.
Okay.
But please ask later if you have a question.
The computer expenses budgeted at 30,000 and the forecast projected for this year is 37, and it was budgeted for 70,000 last year. Are you expecting to not have as much software expense, or?
We had anticipated some major replacement of computers, Mark. The replacement cost, and we replaced 4 of them, was a lot less than we thought we were going to spend. So now, some of that $70,000 got capitalized. So it would be reflected in depreciation going forward.
Okay.
So instead of it being small items that didn't quite hit the capitalization, we have a new engineer, everything we bought for that position gets capitalized instead of
Right, okay.
expenses. So that's a little bit why that number is off.
Okay.
We probably did spend, I know we didn't spend 70, but we certainly spent probably 10,000 more than the 37. The 37, I think 27 or 28 of that is just AutoCAD.
Mm-hmm.
Just AutoCAD, annual costs.
We're gonna see any more video cameras going through the sewer and,
That's a good question, and something you don't see here. The last big purchase we made for Hauling Bar was the camera truck, ATV, whatever you want to call it. We actually have been buying stuff for Hauling Bar in the meantime, and it's all been stuff that's below mine and Jeff's purchasing authorization. And in fact, right now, we're purchasing a brand new GPS. We have two really nice GPS units when we bought them. They're losing service. Their generation is being moved out in terms of satellite coverage. So we actually signed for the purchase of one today. That's about $22,000 that we're
Nice.
purchasing. And that first one will be primarily Hauling Bar's unit, so we will transfer that to them. We are going to buy a second one too. We're trying to decide between two different units. That one being the more expensive one. There is one that's less money, but I'm not sure we'll be happy with the accuracy of it in all the places in the franchise area. So we're gonna get this one. We're gonna use it and see what we want to do next, and we'll go from there. This past year, we bought a ground penetrating radar. We bought, we're also buying some fire flow testing equipment right now. What else did we buy, Clint? We bought 3 different things, I think, or if Barbara can remember.
Something to test the flow.
We bought Mark. We bought Mark a brand new high-end flow meter to verify the accuracy of large diameter meters, the GPR, and there's one more thing. I can't for the life of, I mention it every time we do it in the board meeting. I just can't remember what it is. We do, in fact, we've kind of been looking for other things, and we've kind of been looking for things. The agreement says we'll purchase something that can be useful to both companies, and everything we've done has been that way.
Okay.
Most of the stuff, however, we have purchased is mostly beneficial to Hauling Bar water system. I think, and we'll probably talk about this more later, there's a thought that if Messi is to continue post-Phil and post-Dale, Messi has to probably change from a strictly professional services organization to some non-professional services. And we've kind of been playing with, what does that look like? What is something that we can get into to leverage the staff we have, but can eventually be run by maybe non-professional staff, but something Hauling Bar staff might be able to help with too. We just haven't honed in on what that thing is yet. So in the meantime, I'm sure all of you have seen the amount of money that's in the bank on the balance sheet. So it's just sitting there waiting for us to decide what that thing is.
okay.
I wondered if you could clarify the use of the GPS you described, how that will be utilized.
Well, Hauling Bar uses it every day. There is an ongoing project to locate, essentially to centimeter accuracy, the center line of all the water lines and sewer lines in the system. And Hauling Bar uses a mapping system that's put into. They also map all of the new lines And then that unit can also be turned around to, if you have a GPR problem in the field, you can turn around and use that unit to actually relocate items in the field too.
Anything that you found to determine the I&I consistent losses yet?
I know, I don't think we've actually used the GPS to reverse locate some manholes, but I think they have used the GPR in a couple of places where we got manholes buried. Now, not that uncovering those manholes would reduce any I&I, but it's never good when you got manholes that have been paved over by Santa Rosa County, or someone else for that matter, so. But no, I don't think it, I'm not saying it wouldn't be at all useful in I&I, but not highly useful, to honestly answer that question.
I had a couple clarification items. Could you explain the service revenue line item for hauling of our water system right under service revenue? Can you help me understand that?
That's what we bill you for, everything that we bill you for. We bill you for essentially three different types of services. One, the system engineer. Most of those services are billed at an hourly rate. And then we bill you for hourly rate for other services requested by Jeff or that we've just been identified that we do all the time. Those are billed at hourly rate. And then when we do a capital project, we treat you as if you're a standard third-party client, and we give Jeff a proposal for that work that has the scope and the fee included, and then we bill off that.
And didn't Mr. Krigler say that you're down assistant engineer temporarily and you and he are doing work?
Correct. Well, actually, there's probably 4 of us doing that work, but
Is he on maternity leave or?
again, there's only 7 of us if we start talking about.
Oh, okay.
We're about to get into HR. And
Oh,
public
okay, all right,
so,
well, I'll go on then. The travel, so the WEF is gonna be in New Orleans, next
Yes, ma'am.
year. You still think it's gonna be about $20,000 for 3 of you?
Oh, no, that WEFTEC won't eat that whole budget up. The rest of it will be used to send people to various other things.
Seminars and
Yes,
blah,
ma'am.
blah, blah.
Yeah.
Okay, the phones, is that cell phones at $450 a month, or do you have a hardwired phone?
That's a share of the internal phone and cell phone, I believe.
And accounting auditing, you're not part of the Avery, Warren,
Yes, we are.
Avery? So you pay a portion of
Yes,
that?
ma'am.
Okay, a shared portion, okay.
Yeah,
I got it.
they split the proposal up when they give it to you by entity.
Okay. And almost getting to the end here, professional expenses, 250 coming down to 245,000.
Mhm.
That is for your staffs. I don't understand that one.
No, so let's say,
Oh, you
let's
have-
say ECUA hires us to do a well job, just out of the blue, just to pick someone. We're civil engineers. So in a well job, in addition to civil engineering, there would also be electrical engineering. There would be structural engineering. There would be architectural services for the building. And there might be some mechanical, actually there would be mechanical because they're all have AC in them now. So we have to pay a third party for those services. That's what that is. The professional services is all those professional services except for surveying, and we break out surveying separately.
Okay, and lastly, the miscellaneous expenses.
Anything that can't be placed in
Categorized.
one of those
Okay.
things up there, I don't know if Barbara could give you an example of one of them or not, but I sure couldn't. It's just
All right.
whatever doesn't fit up above.
Thank you so very much.
It's a much simpler budget than the others.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. It is what it is.
Is that bombing? What is
I think
that?
it's
Well, that's C-130.
Gunships.
Sound of Freedom.
At first I thought somebody was on top, up there.
Air's light, so the sound's carried.
As long as it doesn't get any louder, you know, practice is going well. It's that occasional one that gets a little louder.
Any other messy
All right.
questions?
Any other questions? If not, we're gonna move on to hauling the bar water system. This should be the quickest one of all. There should be no problems. Over with, no time.
All right, so I guess let's start with kind of how this budget's built, provide just a little bit of background. So each department kind of builds this thing from the ground up. We get a breakdown from each department. I'm holding a couple of them right here, of what they're gonna need each year, and that helps us build our operational expenses. And those expenses, for the most part, are pretty set and predictable. There's not a lot of variability in them. We're using essentially the same chemicals. We pretty much know how much power we use with FPL as an example. So we're able to predict pretty good on the expense side for operations. I think you'll see that in some of the information we present here. So basically, if you take the operational expenses and then you combine that with your unrestricted CIP projects, those two items combined are what have to be covered by our revenue. So that's kind of essentially how we kind of make this budget. And that doesn't include the restricted at all. Restricted is funded by the system capacity fees, and then our revenue goes and pays for our expenses plus our unrestricted capital projects. So that's kind of how we're gonna look at this. I bet it's frozen up. So there we go. All right, so let's talk about kind of last year, what got us here. So last year, we hired Gov Rates to do a rate study. And they recommended that we do a 12% increase in 2025, 2026, and then 3% thereafter for a 10-year period. And in 2025, we did implement that 12% rate increase. We also have a current board action from 2020 that directs us to do an automatic rate increase equal to the CPI. That current number is 2.8%. So for discussion tonight, what we've done, and not really knowing the board's direction on what they want to do here, we're starting with the 2.8% rate increase that's per the current board action. Once again, that was from current action from 2020 that hasn't been necessarily, I guess, officially changed. So that's what's in this budget, and that's what's part of the revenue number, and I'm going to break down those numbers here shortly, a little bit. And before we dive into the actual revenue worksheet, I want to kind of go over some of the trends on both the growth and the system capacity fees in our system. So this first chart shows a running 12-month total of system capacity fees. And you see that's wastewater in orange and water in blue. And this is, I believe this is over a 12, I think this goes back to 2013. It's about 12 years of data. And you can see the trend here, and the trend is down. There was a big uptick around 2021, that was COVID timeframe. But you can see it overall, it's a downward trend in system capacity fees, which means obviously new development in the system. And of course, once again, that affects the restricted side of the budget. This next slide shows water use per day for our residential customers. And you can see we're averaging just slightly above 150. I believe the number is 156 gallons per day. Pretty consistent over this time frame. So we don't expect that number to move much. And of course, that's one of the components of our revenue. It's how many customers and how much water they use. So you can get new customers, or you can change how much water you use. Those are two main variables in what determine that usage. And you can see the average usage per day is pretty constant, so we feel pretty good about that number. And this just shows a running annual average of the water use. There is a little more variability when you look at it that way, but if you were to put a trend line through that, it's still pretty flat. And then we talk about our residential customers in terms of numbers, and this is annual increase in residential customers. You can see the trend here as well, also downward. Actually, you can see starting in 24, I believe that's May of 24, you can see we had months where we had more people leaving or closing their account or ending their membership than we did moving into the system or opening a new account. Little uptick there in the summer, it looks like, but not much. It's definitely a downward trend, and that's kind of the demographics we're facing. Navarre is pretty well developed. A lot of the very large parcels are already developed. A lot of development we see is single lots here and there. You do see pieces of property getting developed to a higher density. A lot of townhomes and things going in. But like I said, it's not quite a built out community, but it is approaching that.
This is just residential, though. There has probably been an increase in commercial.
Well,
It's pretty flat too.
Yeah.
Mark.
Is it really? Yeah.
When you look at it, it's not,
With all the coffee shops and
It's supported by coffee shops.
well, your low square footage, low use don't impact you much, so. But commercial growth is no different than the residential. It's down from what it was originally. But it's pretty consistent for the last couple of years.
When did Elevate come on?
Elevate's been at least 2 years, I believe. I think they
Yeah,
I didn't see a little spike from that because that was a lot of residential customers added.
You're taking that spike, that's a 12-month running total, Mark.
Okay.
So, yeah, Elevate came on, that tells you what the rest of the year was like.
Right.
That was it.
Yeah.
And this next one is just a running annual average of customer growth. You can see some similar trend, downward trend there. So now I guess that kind of sets up the discussion for the revenue sheet. I'd like to run through that. It's your first sheet in your packet there for the Holly Navarre budget. Once again, not going to go over every item. I want to hit some highlights here. As we discussed with the trend in system capacity fees, you see we're projecting water capacity fees to be lower for 2026, and wastewater as well, from 700 to 500,000, and then $1.1 million to around 700,000. So that's significant, but we think the trend supports that, and we want to capture that reality of what those demographics are starting to look like. Of course, on our revenue, there's the two biggest items are, of course, water and wastewater sales. So you can see we have projected water sales, $7 million, about 420,000. Wastewater sales, $7,486,000 ballpark. It's interesting to note that you get almost the same amount of revenue from roughly a little more than half the number of customers, just for the way the rates are set for those two items. I also wanted to mention the Santa Rosa County Regional Reuse Project is on here for revenue, and it's showing a 2026 number of $2,193,000. That's essentially reimbursement that we'll be getting from Santa Rosa County. So essentially, we've paid the contractor for items such as the pump station at the wastewater plant that's part of the Eglin project. That's a reimbursement from the county. So it
right.
comes in as revenue, but that's paid out to the contractor. It's not. Another large item on here, which is fairly consistent, is our reimbursement from Fairpoint. That's the work that our staff does to take care of Fairpoint. You know, we charge for the labor as well as the vehicles and travel, equipment, things like that. Projecting $430,000 for that. Interest income is projected to be lower for 2026. It was fairly high in 2025, and the reason for that is we were earning interest on the balance of that bond, the bond proceed, which is now essentially going to be used up in 2026. So that number should reflect more just the interest on our cash. I would say that. And once again, so that water sales and wastewater sales number that you're seeing would include the 2.8% rate increase that I mentioned. It was part of that current board action, and we'll get into that discussion later. Any other questions on the revenue side?
Nope.
Just note the totals at the bottom. 3,392,000 restricted. That's the 2 system capacity fees plus the reimbursement from San Jose County. That's where we get that from.
I have a couple questions right here. I hope that I could get them in an understandable fashion. Miscellaneous revenue, the club. That's coming in at proposed 6,000. Where does that come from, Mr. Kugler?
I'm gonna let Barbara answer that one.
We back charge them for mainly the HR labor for them to do their payroll or any HR services we back charge the club for that.
Okay.
And any IT services that they make.
Miscellaneous revenue wastewater.
That would be any line extensions or contributions from developers on line improvements.
All right. I think there is a 401K. Maybe I have to turn the page.
Yeah,
Okay,
401K is
so-
on the expense side.
Okay, all right, so maybe I didn't write down expenses, okay. All right, so overall, what we're looking at here is a 29% decrease in system capacity fees and a 39% decrease as computed by the spreadsheet in system capacity fees for wastewater.
Correct.
Wow. And I guess what I can't understand is how the fire department, in comparing that, they are seeing a 78% increase in service calls, but yet we're looking at all these reductions in customers.
In service calls,
Right. So they're just, to beat the band, and then these indicators that we're way down. Okay, understand.
Yeah, you kind of, just to look at it too, even like on the revenue side, when you look at the projection, like for wastewater revenue for next year, still $500,000 higher than what we're projecting at the end of this year to be. You kind of start worrying about whether even some of those are conservative enough.
Yeah.
You would hope you could get people to continue to connect to the sewer system. But
Well, and you raise a good point, and I wanted to share with the board that there is a citizen-initiated septic to sewer plan to apply for a grant, which would be negligible cost to the customers as a prototype. And the board and should decide whether how we're going to participate in that, maybe giving a little bit of an inch. And I know, Mr. Krigler, you talked about long-term expenses associated with all of this, but if we can't bring down their system capacity hookup fee a little bit, I think it would be a great incentive to that, because they're trying to create one prototype, just like McDonald's, and replicate that 19-cent hamburger in another area, in another area, in another area, and that gives us some possible growth potential. I'd like to hear from the system experts, the engineers, as to whether that's too optimum an outlook.
How were they funding the other part of their?
They were going to, they found numerous grants that could cover the whole enchilada,
They
with
pay
the
for it.
exception
Connection
of
cost.
of the hookup.
The
fee.
private connection cost.
Yes.
Yeah, you just
They're
have,
paying
that's always a cat and mouse game, you know. The general consensus is, well, we want to drive the revenue growth. Well, that's fine, but if you don't pay for, if that person that connects doesn't pay for their fair share of the wastewater treatment plant and the Eglin project and everything else, what happens is, and you actually see it here, is if you go back to the restricted sheet, what you see is the last couple of years, and I'm not saying everybody go look at it, I don't want to digress that far, but what you'll see is your capacity fees are not covering your restricted expenses. Well, when your capacity fee for someone new that comes on and connects, and that person doesn't pay their fair share for what everybody else that already is in the system has paid for them, and for the stuff that is ongoing, essentially you've just transferred that person's fair share of those costs to everyone. So, you know, when you look at it, say you connect, you find grant money to connect 100 lots, but you waive the impact fees, the capacity fees. Well, you've just waived $500,000. That's a third of 1 year's payment on the bond. So it just becomes the cat and mouse game that the board has to play, and you know what's fair and how do you cover your expenses.
I'm not saying waive it in its entirety. I'm saying, is it possible for us to have somewhat of a small carrot, just a little bit of negotiating room, so that people are completing this survey, more people than are in the catchment area are completing the survey. So we have some potential fish out there. If they can get this grant done, I just don't know if there's a little bit of negotiating room so that they can say, hauling of our water system is, you know, compromising just a little bit, I don't know, small carrot.
Well, the easiest way to help people out in that situation without affecting your ultimate cash revenue is either you finance the capacity fees, or you're seeing this in a lot of places in Central and South Florida. If you can get the grant money to do the septic to sewer conversion, you can let the local authority, which would be the county in this case, set up an MSBU, and then the capacity fees are paid through the annual taxation of property taxes. And they'll run them out to some length of time. I think they'll do MSUs for 20 years. Most of the ones we've seen have been, 10-ish, 12-ish years. But that's the easy way without affecting your revenue. Beyond that, you just kind of have to figure out how it affects you.
And the acronym you used was MSU or MSBU?
MSB.
Okay, gotcha.
MSBU, yeah.
One of these days, we probably ought to have that conversation in front of the board. I know some of you know what an MSBU is, but an MSBU is available for any group inside this franchise area right now, right here today. And what it is, let's say you have a 50-lot subdivision, and the boundaries are clear in that 50-lot subdivision. It's an old subdivision with a name that was built by a developer, and it doesn't have sewer in it. Say the people in that subdivision wanted to put sewer in that subdivision. They could go to the county, and they could petition the county to establish an MSBU, and if 51% of the people within the defined project boundary agree to the terms of the MSBU, which is essentially what they're going to be taxed, projected for the next X number of years, the county will set up an MSBU and they will finance the construction of the project and charge the property owners via their property tax bill each year to pay it back. And they can include capacity fees in an MSBU. There's no restriction there.
They do them a lot for like road paving and street lighting and sidewalks and, things like that, that people want to.
Stormwater,
Yeah.
yeah, especially in
Yeah.
older subdivisions, you see a lot of stormwater. And again, in Central and South Florida, where they're having high groundwater table and, the tides are getting higher, you're seeing them used for septic to sewer conversions, so.
Yeah, stormwater pond at Aragon Park for veterans in Pensacola, that's an MSP.
Yep.
That was funded. And that's a stormwater pond, not we just created it as a water amenity for the park.
Well, I'll
That's an
certainly
investment.
pass that on. I just thought, in the military, we go into foreign areas, we establish ways to give them potable water, winning hearts and minds. And I'm not into any giveaways, but, a little small carrot here and there that would not jeopardize our long-term maintenance. So it's something we can talk about later.
There have been MSUs inside Holly Bar's franchise area before, and Holly Bar water system historically, if the project can be done, designed in-house by the system engineer, Holly Bar has participated in that cost to some extent. So that cost usually isn't anywhere near anything but a fraction of the total cost, but Holly Bar has done that previously. There just hasn't been an MSBU in a very long time.
With everything to keep in mind with those sewer connections, is we have a lot of areas where the sewer is there and available, but people aren't connected. So it could be a larger number than you're thinking. And this, I'm thinking of the areas where we have a low pressure sewer. Not every home on those streets where we have low pressure, they're not all connected. So probably a substantial number, but we could add if there was a program like that. So there'd be a lot to look at there in terms of those numbers, how those numbers work out.
I'm just looking at potential for us when I look at all these decreasing numbers.
Right.
Where are we going? How are
To
we going to
Phil's
sustain?
point, if you get these additional customers, but then don't have the 20 million to expand the wastewater plant because you didn't collect all the impact fees, then you're worse off. So that's the balance.
Well,
we're trying to
and then
achieve.
I guess the question is, with 2 wastewater treatment plants, how much capacity do we have in each one left?
You're running about 1.7 to
Out
1.8
of 3.
in the Navarre plant. It's a 3 MGD plant. And then you're running
50,000 gallons?
50,000
Out of
gallons.
250
Yeah, it's 250, but we're limited.
to half of that 125.
Yeah, about 125 on the disposal capacity.
Yeah.
Anything above that, we probably need to connect to the Eglin project.
Right. And that's up to Holly, the smaller plants.
It's possible we could eventually permit the ribs there for more than 125, but that would have to come as we got closer to the true capacity of those ribs.
So to restate, the capacity of the Holly one on Gordon Evans Road is what again?
About 125. And we're running 50-ish, I think. Should have brought my board back.
I think you're right.
Somewhere in there.
Thank you.
All right. moving right along.
Let's, look at, the expense side of the equation. Kind of three large categories here. The second page being the general admin budget, where all the wages sit, plus all the kind of general items. And then we have a water and wastewater expense breakout as well. So overall, in terms of overall operational expenses, we're looking at about 2.7% increase over 2025 numbers. We'll go through kind of some of that, what's driving some of that. Of course, our biggest cost item on the administrative budget is wages. We've been able to hold wages pretty steady at right around 4.2 million. Since I've been here, that's pretty much been the number last 3 years. This year, we're looking at just slightly higher, 4,225,000. I will note that position does have a part-time grant writer in it that was talked about. That's not approved in the org chart, but it is in there, essentially just as a placeholder in the event we decide to move forward with that. I know that's been discussed by a couple of board members. You'll see on the group insurance, you'll notice that difference there. That's the money that was essentially with the HMO plan being cheaper than the PPO plan. You'll see that cost savings there. What we did there is that plan renews October 1. So what we did was we did assume a small increase for that last quarter. So that's why you'll see that number is a little bit higher than the number that was approved back when we approved the plan. So we would assume there's going to be some sort of increase in 2026 when we go to renew. 401k match was mentioned. You'll note that the board did approve an increase of matching an employee's 401ks from 5 to 6%. That difference ended up being around $25,000. So you can see we had about 129,000 ballpark in 25, it's 153,000 in 2026. So not a very large increase at all. Pension contribution, 250. That's kind of a number that we've been looking at for both this year and next year. The required contribution is less than that. We've been kind of approaching this as if we can fund this thing at a little higher level and get ahead of it, we think it's the right thing to do. Another new item you'll see on here is corporate taxes. That hasn't been on here, and the reason for that is we haven't had to pay them because we've had essentially a loss carryover for the last couple of years. It's now gone. So with both entities making money, and I say that I mean the club and Messy, we had a tax loss carryover that has now been used up, and now we have corporate tax liability for our two companies we own. But you'll see later on in this budget that money is paid back by each entity. So we do have to show it as a cost to us. Computer expense is higher than 2025 number. The main reason for that is there's some security upgrades, CCTV type upgrades planned, as well as some server upgrades that are not every year type items, but they're probably going to hit next year. Software service licenses also significantly more, and that is going to be for the software upgrades to replace our current accounting and member services software that we've been struggling with. So we'll look at starting that in early 2026, and that's our estimates at this time to get that replaced.
283,860, is that correct?
That's the number I'm referring to, yes.
Okay.
And once again, we got that. We're working with an IT consultant. Those are estimates based on pricing that those software firms have given us. Those are not signed contracts. So they typically, their standard operation procedure is to give like a 30-day or 60-day quote just because they want you to sign. But we just use that for budgeting purposes. We still have to go through procurement processes, finish vetting all these vendors. So it's a budget item and it's an estimate. Let's see. I'll mention Insurance expense, $506,000. Of course, that's our property insurance. You'll note that that's a number that continues to go up. We continue to look at ways to mitigate that, but it is higher than 2025's number. And I will also note this wage number for 2026 does include a 2.8% COLA, which is the COLA that Social Security recipients will be getting. So that's in that number as well. Questions on those?
Professional services, that was a pretty big increase.
Let's see, that went from. So,
Five from the bottom.
yeah, so we've now put Liberty Partners in there. That was previously actually paid for on the restricted side with the Eglin project because of the funds that they brought in for that. But we really feel like their services are now more general in nature. We think that it belongs as a kind of administrative cost over here. It's really not just about that anymore. We talk about all kinds of things and all kinds of political type issues.
So is their contract gonna run up to 90 grand a year then? Is that what-
No, that, I think the question had to do with the increase. They're about 30-something thousand.
They're 35.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 35 of that increase, so it increased from 45 to 90. And that's the majority of the increase is Liberty Partners.
And the
There's some
other,
other items that are already in that budget item.
and the other part of professional services would it be messy?
Yes, ma'am.
And the legal's a separate
Yeah,
line.
legal's separate.
Legal separate. And legal, we kept it the same as 2025. And 2025 was a unique year in the sense that we had arguably a election issue that we wouldn't have every year, and that resulted in some higher costs. But even our projected end of year is really not that much above budget. So we really done a good job containing that as well.
Okay, I've got some observations on this page. The professional fees for 401K. How long have we been with the same plan provider?
For the 401K plan,
Yes.
is Jared, do you know the answer for that? Since I've been here.
I think from the beginning.
Has there ever been any thought to re-looking at that? Because there are so many people in that plan, as evidenced by the Form 5500 at $633 a month, maybe we could bring that down a little bit. And there are some providers out there that do volume discounts, just saying. Utility discount, decrease in the amount of utilities, that's great. So is the basis for that, Mr. Krigler, because you're anticipating the energy audit will be very, very efficient in bringing some of the energy expenses down? That's great.
No, I don't think we're necessarily banking on that. I think that's just the roll-up on the different utilities that they came up with. We did receive a draft of that audit. There's some good things in there, but some of it is stuff we're either already doing or is not really going to move the needle much.
You mean the gov rate?
No. So GovRates did our rate study.
Right.
We reached out to the Florida Rural Water Association for an energy audit at our wastewater plant. We received a draft of that. Phil and I have spoke about it, really hadn't had time to digest it. But we're going to do that, and we can provide feedback on that.
Travel expenses, what's included in that $33,000?
So we have several operators that require certification and training, annual training, engineers as well. So those were, like I said, that's an annual, either a PDH or a CE that you have to go get. Backflow folks go and get annual certifications, so there's several, Phil mentioned WEFTEC, we send a couple people to WEFTEC. So there's several conferences every year that we attend. That's what the travel expense is for, and that's what the education and training budget is for. Send those employees to keep them up to date with their, not only with their certifications, but with what's going on in the industry.
And then, just so we understand, and I think this is gonna be the answer, office expenses, you send out all these bills every month and you have a large paper tiger. Is that kind of explain that?
There's several things in office expense. Barb, why don't you go over those?
Office expense, we have housekeeping, so the office cleaning, security on the building, the shredding company that comes out and gets all of our secure documents, and our ACH processing that processes our paper. That's the bulk of that 120.
Thank you, Barbara, that's very informative. Okay. System engineering, that was over on the messy side, but if we need a system engineer for hauling of our water system special projects,
No, the system engineer is a messy employee, but the vast majority of his time is hauling of our work.
So you have two line items. You have one line item that says system engineer, and then you have another line item that says engineering or professional services. Just the system engineer is in the one line item.
for hauling of our water
Yeah,
system.
he's
Okay,
an
got it.
employee of ours, but he essentially sits in your office and works for Jeff most of the time. And then the other line item that's the professional services or engineering, depending on which department it's in, that's when we provide a service outside the system engineer to Jeff. It's an hourly rate service.
Okay. And then the bad debt, we're showing that that's increasing. Could it be that is going to be ameliorated with the bid process to find the debt collection service that will do that, skip tracing, no social security number? They can go back unlimited, but statute of limitations in Florida is 5 years. Can that expense be reduced since we may be getting more funds back that are delinquent?
Well, let's go back to the revenue page. So we have a recovery of bad debt item, and that we did increase that from 2025 with the expectation that we will have a firm on board to help us with that. And keep in mind that bad debt runs around, I think this year it's a little higher than 20,000, but around 20,000 a year. So if we say they're going to get half of that, maybe be successful with half of that, we get half of that back. That's where we got the 5,000 from.
Right, it's 33 1/3%. If there are some out there that do 50%, but that's not advantageous to us.
Right.
The bad debt is less than what the projected 2025 year end is going to be, so they did forecast it to be a little less.
Right.
And to keep in mind that the bad debt becomes bad debt before it goes to the agency. So it's still gonna hit as bad debt as an expense. And then once it goes to the agency and
come
what
back
they
as a-
can collect, it becomes the revenue.
Come back.
Okay. And the bond issue, this bond again is what?
Are you looking at bond issue dash administrative fees?
Yes.
I believe that's the fees for the Ameris.
That is the fees for the first bond.
That's the
for
first
the
one.
original bond. So we have two different bonds. We have a bond from 2014, and that's the fees from the original bond.
To purchase or secure what? what is it
Is that
associated
wastewater
with?
plant work? What was that
Oh,
first?
gosh, it was a bunch of different things.
Yeah.
It was water and wastewater. It was, that's why it's carried on that side instead of the restricted side. It wasn't just capitalized capacity projects. It was all different kinds of stuff, and including rolling over the very first bond that Hall and Bar ever had that was really the second bond.
Yes.
So-
That was in the
so-
early 2000s, I believe.
So the question would be, are we near maturity or within 5 years of maturity?
That is 2044. So that was a 30-year bond.
So you said 2024?
44.
Oh, 2044, okay.
2044.
At $1,442 a month, have we given any thought to maybe looking at some alternatives after we've reviewed the indenture clause?
You saved no interest by paying that bond early, none whatsoever.
No, right, but, okay, so,
You mean to
This is not the
refinance?
interest.
correct, correct.
This is not the interest on the bond. These are just the administrative fees for
I-
them
I
to
understand
administer and trust
I
the bond.
If you paid it
understand.
off, then the administrative fee.
Yeah.
I understand. Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other comments on the general admin expenses? We can move on to page 3, which is water wastewater expenses. Water expenses are really the two main items drive this, your R&M line item, $425,000, and then your water purchases, which is the water that we purchase from Fairpoint. Those two things make up about 80% of this expense category. You'll notice the R&M number is higher than 2025. The reason for that is, or higher than the budgeted number. The reason for that is the increased breaks that we're seeing from the telecom companies in the system, putting a real strain on our operations staff, and there's a financial hit to it too. We're working real hard to try to get as much of that money back as we can. I've had some very preliminary discussions with Will at some point if he needs to get involved or not, but we are actively pursuing that. But it is affecting us cost-wise and with manpower and really all aspects of operations. I think we had how many, 2 today, Clinton? 1 or 2 today? What's that?
Lord. 3 today.
3? Jeez, see?
They broke a gas line a few days ago, too.
Close the highway.
If it's there, they hit it.
Yeah.
You
Bet on it.
mark it for them so they know where to hit it at.
Yeah, that's all.
Do they pay some kind of penalty to
We're trying.
the county or anything for doing that?
No, we met with the county and tried to get some additional restrictions through the right-of-way permitting process, and it hasn't moved very far.
It seems like it should be not just a repair cost, but some kind of a penalty for the inconvenience and for just, don't be stupid.
So they did a lot of, they started over in Walton and Okaloosa, and then are moving over here. So we have some of those language from those counties have done, and we've talked to Santa Rosa County about it, but they haven't adopted it yet. They're still talking about it. There was some things that those counties ended up doing.
There should be some kind of a fine.
Is the CEO of that company aware of what his minions are doing?
He doesn't. Yeah, but he's fully aware.
It's kind of the cost of doing business.
Yeah,
really.
they've been directed.
It's horrible
They don't
to say
care,
that,
yeah.
But that's
Okay.
what it is.
Time is money.
Yeah. They've been directed to put in as much as they can, as quickly as they can. All right. Anything else on the water budget? Let's touch on wastewater next. Just skipping down to the total, our wastewater budget is essentially flat. The R&M number, similar to what I mentioned with the water, also higher, same situation. Sewer service lines, sewer mains getting hit, increased costs, increased staff time and labor to deal with that. That's the real reason for that. We were able to reduce our groundskeeping expense. We revisited what all we really need done at our lift stations for the most part, and Donna was able to negotiate basically lower price for the groundskeeping. So I wanted to highlight that. And then, of course, we talked about, during the club budget, we talked about the spray field items. You'll see those total 114, similar to the numbers shown on the club's budget.
And then there's a decrease in the spray field utilities, and what do you attribute that to?
So overall, we reduced the utility spray field and the R&M spray, those two items, we reduced from 190 to 114, so it was essentially, it's an allocation. The majority of it stays in the utilities didn't go down much, they still have to, but the R&M item was the one that was reduced more. But really, it was just an allocation, because what we did was reduce the total from 190 to 114. And once again, that was based on the Eglin project coming online, and also the lower costs that they had this year.
Because the club is starting to pick up more and more of that cost. All right.
So page, let's see, that was page 3.
The tax contribution, I had a question about that. Yeah.
Yeah, because we get reimbursed for that. It's an expense, but the
We
water
pay
company gets
the
reimbursed.
tax, and the entities pay us back, essentially. So that's where you see that money coming back.
And is this the same bond Barbara talked about, or is this a different bond?
No,
Same one.
this is the corporate taxes.
Now she's talking
The
about
bond
this one.
payment.
Tax.
No, this one.
Oh, the bond principal, that is the original bond, that's the one that I was talking about. This is the principal payment on that.
The one that's 30 years, started in 2014, comes due in paid off 2030, 2040.
2040.
Okay.
And that number does increase every year. Yeah.
All right, so moving on, let's say page 4, this is just a kind of summary of everything. This summarizes the revenue figure, summarizes the 3 expense categories. And you can see it gives us a total expenses versus that revenue, and it gives us a forecasted gain before depreciation of $3,121,850. And that's the number we're looking to apply to our unrestricted, to make sure that we can do our unrestricted projects in the system, which is our next sheet, which we'll go over. So the way we do the unrestricted budget, it's a 5-year lookout, and it includes items that are general type repairs. For instance, the collection system, lift stations. We essentially assign a pot of money each year, knowing we're going to spend money in those categories. They still do analysis within each one for individual lift stations, for example. But like I said, a lot of our categories are annual buckets that we fund every year, and we know we're going to have costs in those items. I did want to mention Highway 98 relocation. This is a really big unknown for us. It is not a funded The construction of that project is not funded by DOT. However, you'll recall there's been numerous stories in the media where Hurlburt Air Force Base has expressed concerns about 98 and its impacts to the mission. So we feel like it's an inevitability at some point.
Easy for you to say.
Easy. That at some point, they're gonna have to do something on 98 there. When they do, we've got utilities in the right of way, they're gonna have to be relocated. That's both an unrestricted and a restricted cost. It's unrestricted in the sense that we have to move something without upgrading it. If we move a line and make it larger, that's additional capacity, that portion of that would be restricted. So we're still analyzing this. We have no information from DOT that project's funded in their 5-year work plan. What concerns us is that there's some major traffic event or something and it becomes political and then gets, they find the funding somewhere. So we monitor that as closely as we can. We talk to our lobbyists about it, see what they know. But that's kind of one of the bigger unknowns in both the unrestricted and restricted sides of this capital budget, because this could be a very high dollar relocations that would be required for that. We certainly work, when they develop the roadway plans, we have an opportunity to work with their design engineer to mitigate conflicts, but at the end of the day, they're going to be putting big drainage pipes in and they're not going to be able to miss everything. So we know there's going to be impacts. Plus, I believe we have, what, Clinton, 2 to 3 to 4 lift stations that have to be relocated, depending on which phase the project hits. So
Millions of dollars.
got some substantial risks there. I did want to mention our generator. We did not get to implement that project in 25. After looking at it, it looks like it's going to require a little more scope. We need to include some new transfer switches and equipment in that. So we've increased that for 2026. See, you can see we've got several projects at the wastewater plant that we've identified. Some bigger ones work on the digester, work on the chlorine contact chamber. Those are in out years. But we do have some work identified for 2026, including fixing some of the arms on the clarifiers, as an example. Another item I wanted to mention on the unrestricted down here in general and miscellaneous section, you'll see upgrade ERP software. Once again, there's some costs with that. So not only do we have annual license costs with software, when you do a big change like this, you have an implementation cost, and those implementation costs are covered on the unrestricted side.
What's ERP?
So it's enterprise resource. It's basically our accounting and billing software.
Okay.
But as you know, we have one product now, and we're looking at a combination of 2 to 3 products to replace it. We'll note we have a financing on our FlexNet, which is our automatic meter reading system. The infrastructure that was put in for that does get paid off in 27. So that liability goes away in 27. Any other questions on unrestricted?
Get delirious down here.
Yes, could someone delineate the difference between the VT SCADA in wastewater and the one for the 2 wastewater treatment plants in wastewater treatment and disposal?
They've broken up VT SCADA into all the major sections. So there's VT SCADA that goes on lift stations, there's VT SCADA that goes on the primary plant, and there's VT SCADA that goes on the hauling plant.
And that's just the monitoring system?
And control, monitoring and control.
Monitoring.
Remote control, right?
supervisory control and data acquisition.
There you go. Look at you.
Much like
You're an engineer.
It's been burned into my brain, man. I'll be 95, I can't remember your name, but I'll
Remember that.
And the replacement arms on 2 clarifiers. Does that mean one of them or both of them
There's,
at each wastewater treatment plant?
no, that's all at Pepper, that's all at Pepper.
It's all Pepper.
Just on two of the older clarifiers.
Go on that tour one day, we'll show you.
I know, had a little cancer problem, and as soon as I get all the appointments scheduled and finished, I will be right on that. So a clarifier is pretty expensive, so are we anticipating that it's going to go out or just putting it in there? The life cycle on those are what, 20 to 25?
There's
If it
some-
goes out and falls off,
Yeah.
we're in a world of hurt.
We've already had one fall.
Yeah, we've already had
repaired.
one fall
So
in.
this is replacing with that one that we repaired.
This is a big circular basin that essentially separates the solids from the liquids at the
Right.
plant. And it
Familiar
has
with
an
that.
arm that turns around that essentially skims the surface, well, in addition to doing some stuff underneath the plant too, but those arms are just regular steel that are coated, but they're in the water continuously and right at the water surface, so they corrode and they go away and they have to be replaced.
And there can't be any repair, you're looking at ultimate replacement, worst case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, they've been repaired, that and the bridges have been repaired and repaired and repaired some more, so.
Wastewater plant's a highly corrosive environment. Stuff just doesn't last out there.
And when they repair, they put epoxy coatings on there and stuff like that, okay. All right, and so while you all are doing your annual torque and visual checking, you're anticipating that this could go sideways at some point? Okay, and years ago, we had that, how many $1 million clarifier surfacing, right?
$1 million.
Floated one out of the ground.
1.2.
Right, okay.
We don't want to do that again.
Are we anticipating any testing coming up in 2026, or isn't that the EPA mandated date, or has it been moved for PFAS testing?
So all the testing is in the water and wastewater budget.
And it does vary by year, and Donna keeps track of what's
Yeah, and there's
required.
multiple things obviously that we test for. I think when did the PFAS hit for, when will we test for Holly Water? 27.
I'm not trying to turn it off.
Oh, she's right down there.
We're, okay, so we don't currently test for it now, even though other water systems in Santa Rosa are doing it.
We're following the EPA
Yeah.
guidelines for testing.
Right. Mhm. Okay.
Now, we did test on UCMR 5
Mhm.
for Holly Navarre, and there was no hits.
Now, what year was that?
That was last year.
Right.
Mhm.
Didn't the Navy do some testing on the Fairpoint wells too?
All the outlying fields they
Yeah.
did.
And there were positive hits on PFAS out there off South Lynn Road, near a couple of our wells, excuse me, Fairpoint's wells.
So bottom line, this budget is built on the 2.8% increase that the board a few years ago mandated that we do, correct? And so there's no other increase in here.
That's what we figured we'd do as a starting point, yes.
And they recommended that we increase our cost by 12% again.
Who did?
So
The rate study
the rate study
recommended 2%.
recommended, yeah.
And the reason for that was accumulation of cash under the
For our-
presumption that we need to be doing $5 million a year of unrestricted replacement in our system.
Unrestricted,
We
right.
haven't really got there yet. That doesn't mean that need's not out there. It probably is. We just haven't fully identified it yet. So that's the difference.
And the board voted last year to increase 12% with thought that we were gonna do it again this year. And then after this year, we're speaking, 2026, and then after 2026, we were just gonna go up 3% or the cost of living every year after that. So I think that's where our discussion really should be, is whether or not we're gonna continue with that recommendation or going to modify it. I personally feel since we spent the money for the study to be done, it was very thorough. He made some excellent points. Personally, I'm absolutely fine with doing it another 12% this year, but that would incorporate that 2.8% in that 12%.
Correct.
So,
I'd like to make some observations. In this budget, there is no mention of small costs such as converting 10 two-quart hydrants to full-up hydrants, putting hydrants in where some 6-inch lines already pre-exist. I've been on the phone with FDEP this week, asking them in the state revolving drinking water fund if it would be possible for us to apply for a grant underneath that title. He informed me that, Eric Myers, that is no longer really a grant, it is a loan, and it would have to be paid back, so I was disappointed about that. I went and spoke with our fire department, Chief Lewis, who was going to sit down and work with me on applying for some grants for this, only to find out that he is so restricted on funding that the grants that are out there for firefighters, he is going to use those for equipment, materials, and personnel that he so desperately needs, so that door was closed. So I just wanted to remind the board that if we've got properties and lives that are consumed by fires, that we kind of have a symbiotic responsibility during the time, because my husband's home burnt down, that your home no longer exists, it is burned to the ground. The county does not require you to pay property taxes. I don't know what the system does as far as having to pay water fees and sewer fees, but if that answer is the same as the county's, then that typically, if it were to take out a neighborhood or whatever, could have an impact on us. Not to mention that it would be good PR. With regard to the taxes that are showing up, I'm wondering if some capital distributions, as indicated under the IRS rules of a 501c12, might not be in order for the members, and could that offset some of the taxes? I'll throw that question out there. And then I have a final comment.
Now, doesn't MSBU help with the fire hydrants?
So again, if you want to have my discussion that I have with every other utility in the world along the lines of fire protection, without getting into just the politics of it. So back in as late as 84, 85, 86, 87, the water impact fee for hauling of our water system was $800, $850, something like that. And initially, it was even less than that. So when the system was originally installed, it was financed with Farmers Home Loan money. They would not allow you to install line sizes they would not allow you to consider fire protection as part of the installation. Their money was thin, and they were trying to serve as many communities as they could with safe, potable water. So you could put in potable water, but you couldn't put in fire hydrants. So those people at that point in time, the incapacity fee, impact fee, what they paid was reflective of the service level that they got at their lot, which didn't include fire protection. In the early 80s, the same thing is true. Lines were installed that were financed either by the utility itself or by developers, and there wasn't requirement for fire protection. And again, they paid a discounted impact/capacity fee for water that reflects the level of service that they got. So now you've got folks out there that are on 2-inch lines, 3-inch lines, 4-inch lines that don't have fire protection. How do you pay for fire protection for those people? How do you upgrade those areas? Well, if the system just goes out there and pays for it, then essentially the system pays for it, and essentially you tell these people that today came in and wrote a check for $24.50, whatever the water impact fee is today, and by the way, their developer paid for their water line and fire hydrant on top of them having to pay the impact fee. You're now going to tell the guy that came in today and got water service that he actually has to pay for part of the cost now to upsize somebody else's water line. So what are some ways you can help them get what they need without affecting your other customers? MSBU is traditionally, and that is the type of MSBU that's mostly commonly done in Santa
That's what
Rosa
I
County,
thought.
is for water improvements, for fire protection.
Have you contacted them at all, Carmen? MSBU?
No, Midway Water System, as an example, has been involved for years in something we've discussed here, years back. You're intimately familiar with it, about a community development block grant. And they went in for that for 2 significant areas to expand the water lines and install hydrants. They were successful with it. They used the county as the collaborative partner, and they succeeded in New Hope Road was one of those areas out in Midway. They got this huge multi-million-dollar grant to do that, and we've had this discussion.
Yeah, so the second way to help those people out is you go find some free money for them to improve their situation.
And that's what I was trying to do.
And community development block grant, to Carmen's comments, is essentially free money, however their problems. One, I have personally done probably 25 or 30 community development block grant programs, projects. And in all that time, the only water project that ever qualified and got the money was Midway Water System. Water scores fewer points than wastewater. So Midway can't apply for CDBG money directly, neither can Hawley Navarre. Santa Rosa County is the only recipient of CDBG money. So the county, knowing that they're limited in what they can do with that money, essentially they solicit the utilities and other entities in the county and say, hey, look, we'll go after the money if y'all have a project. So inevitably what happens, or what has happened in the past, is Hawley Navarre put in Tarosa Estates, and Pace Water System put in Mills Run, and Midway would put in a water project, and the city of Gulf Breeze would put in a septic to sewer project. And what happens is the person that actually applies for the money for the county, which I happen to sleep with every night, scores those projects.
Does your wife know about this?
They score those projects. They score those projects, and then Santa Rosa County says, well, look, in order for us to best help our residents of the county, we're going to make application for the project that scores the most money. That's essentially what they do, or what they've done in the past. It just so happened that when Midway got their water project funded, what used to be DCA and is now Economic Development, they keep changing the name of the state agency that controls the money. They got behind on their funding cycles, and so they had 2 funding cycles that were like back to back. And in the second funding cycle, not a lot of people have applied, and no one else in Santa Rosa County made application for a wastewater project. Midway stuck the only project in, which was water. So that's how Midway got funded. That's not to say that a water system project could not get funded again. but there's other problems.
And and Commissioner Eddington came to, I don't know if I was here, but he came and talked with, this board about the significant shortfalls. I believe it was second edition that he was referring to, Salamanca, those areas.
So the other problems we face with CDBG money, the biggest problem that Holland Bar faces now is you have to be low to moderate income qualified,
Right.
the area, to get the project. And we just don't have that many of those areas left, and they're scattered, you know, you've got 4 or 5 lots here, and then way over there, you've got 4 or 5 lots, and it just doesn't make
So that
sense.
means
I know Jeff has talked to Robin, because Robin still does work for Santa Rosa County. I know that Jeff has talked to Robin, and I know I have mentioned it to her before, and I can assure you, if Robin thought that Holly Navarre had a project that would qualify, she'd be over here, you know, pushing it. On the wastewater side, it might be more practical, but even then, you still have this problem with the low to moderate income distribution. You just don't have these, Holly Navarre has a long history of getting CDBG projects. They probably have done more wastewater work with CDBG than any other utility in Santa Rosa County over time. There's just not that many areas left to qualify.
There are pages and pages of areas here, you know, without coverage.
Oh, yeah.
And it is a misnomer to think that we are affluent when 75% of the children are on free and reduced lunches. How
Again,
do you?
all it boils down to, it's real simple with this state. You have to go do income surveys of the area you want to serve, and you have to get those folks to certify and swear what their income is. And usually it's 51%, but it can be higher percentages. If you can get 51% low to moderate income, you can qualify the entire area. But it has to be a contiguous area to do it. Now, on the good news side is, sometimes you can extend a water line and you don't have to extend it for 2 miles. You can extend it 500 feet and put a fire hydrant. You can get rid of that much of a 3-inch, 4-inch, or 2-inch line. So you can kind of try and qualify those small areas. But the onus is going to be on Holly Navarre Water System to do that income surveying to prove that those areas will qualify. No one is going to do that for free anymore. So that would be the first thing you would have to do. And then, of course, even if you did qualify, Pace Water System is going to put they have way more areas that are unsewered essentially than us that are scattered out, and they have some areas that really qualify really well. They're going to put a wastewater project in probably every cycle. So you're going to suffer from not scoring enough points, to get the water project qualified. There also is another problem. It would appear that Santa Rosa County is very close to becoming an entitlement county with CDBG because of the population of the county relative to the state. When Santa Rosa County becomes an entitlement community for CDBG money, they no longer have to apply for it. They get a set amount based on their population relative to the entire state every single year, which is great because now you no longer have to apply for it. Unfortunately, they are now able to do things with that money that they can't do essentially if they're not an entitlement county. So you will see them they will no longer have to get Holly Bar and Pace and Midway and Gulf Breeze and Moore Creek, Mount Carmel, and all the other utilities to present a project. Some of their own project and some of their own budget needs can be met with the CDBG work. So.
Oh, and that'll be sucked up.
And when you say they, you're talking about the county commissioners.
Correct. Yeah.
Right, because they're
Yeah, they're
they're
gonna
scrambling for money.
They're going to want
details.
they're going to want to meet their needs as opposed to an individual.
That's what I've been told as well.
Well, should we go back to the
They
county
get paid.
commissioner, since
They
he
get
brought
paid,
that
yeah.
up, and ask him if he has a specific neighborhood that would like to be more aggressive about this, so that we could possibly apply, or how far along is this entitlement
So I think if we could, let's stick with the budget and let's move on, because this is a totally separate discussion right now.
You digressed. into-
Okay.
Yeah, we've
Well,
been here
this has
for an
been
hour
on
and
the
a half
table
almost.
for 10 years. People have been coming up here
Right,
and the
but
board's
this is a different
supposed to be
discussion.
moving forward on it.
I think the best bet is probably an MSBU, and that, I'm not positive, but I think Public Works is the department that handles MSBU's and, you know, and how that process takes place where they, you know, decide which people need this service and, you know, them actually implementing that MSBU, I don't know, but I think Public Works.
But you can
is where
implement
start.
that
The
in
The
separate.
utility can be very helpful to any group of people that wants to do an MSBU. That is true. And there are ways that the utility can be beneficial to small MSBUs. Hauling of R does its own construction. If hauling of R staffing was, you know, up there and Ryan doesn't have that much to do and he's not repairing 15 breaks every week from a fiber optic cable company, you know, you can do the construction yourself and get reimbursed for it, but it would be a heck of a lot cheaper than hiring a contractor to build 500 feet of fire hydrants. But, and just to get off that subject a little bit, I do believe, Carmen, and Clinton will correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm not saying there's absolutely positively no location in this utility, but the utility did make an effort to put fire hydrants on all the 6-inch lines where we thought there needed to be fire hydrants. I don't know that there's any big gaps in the 6-inch system, is there?
Yeah, I've got them here on the map.
Do you?
There's quite a few.
There,
yeah.
it's possible there's some gaps somewhere, but it's,
And for one, it would only take 1 or 2 hydrants to cover a big area. The one I'm thinking about is, the map is Bone Bluff.
I don't think the line size is big enough on Bone Bluff. I'll have to
They're
check.
6-inch.
I'll
It's
check.
split.
Yeah, there's a place in there, it's 4-inch somewhere, so.
Yeah, a lot of these places, it goes 6-inch to the, like the first fire hydrant, it goes 4-inch way on back.
And then my last comment is on topic and is not straying, and it's a question about the importance of the strategic plan that should precede any budget. So I'll just throw it open and ask, when can we discuss a strategic plan? Is that going to be next year?
I think it needs to be with the new board. I don't know that this board wants to craft a strategic plan and, you know, the next week to a new board. That's my thought.
Okay.
Now, I do have one question about that. If you go back to our handbook that we were given, it does say that the strategic plan is to be prepared by the CEO. And then from the CEO, the board reviews it and goes over it. I'll find exactly where that is and send everybody.
Yeah, I envision a group session where everyone can have input on, because it's really talking about high-level strategic stuff. And, you know, Carmen's put something together.
Yeah.
I could write it myself, but that's not kind of, I mean, it really needs to be like almost a team-building, collaborative
Yeah.
exercise to start.
This board's done that before.
Yeah.
We've had a strategic planning workshop that was part of that, you know, that board training that we do every year.
It's really a good time to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I did it as a courtesy to the water system and the board, just as a skeleton to give us something to add, subtract, or,
And I looked over it, and there are a few things that are going to have to be removed. But we'll go over that
well,
with
that's the point.
Yeah,
That's
we'll
the
go
point.
with it over the board.
All right. Any further discussion, any questions?
You know, I guess I would add as a closing statement, just keep reviewing, keep sending questions, and we'll revisit this again.
All right, we found a couple of spots that we need to go back and do some reworking, so. We have a member forum going on, and we have Mr. Don Linnell wants to address the board.
Thanks, Don Linnell, 2586 Circuit Court. Is this being recorded, by the way? It is? Oh, okay. I'll be careful what I say. A couple quick questions, comments. Right. Oh, what's the latest estimated date for Eglin to be operational?
Like second quarter of 26.
Subject to signed, executed easement coming back on.
So third or fourth quarter?
Well,
Well, the easement.
I mean, is that what you're
The
implying?
easement has been issued,
Okay,
and the county has executed.
Yep.
And it has been returned to the military, who immediately warned us that the 90-day expiration date on something to do with the easement might expire before they executed it. So,
okay.
I don't know.
But they cashed the county's check.
They sure did.
So the earliest I'm hearing is 1 July, more likely, more like 1 October.
I think it should be sooner than that, but
Well, second quarter goes, well,
second quarter would be late spring, maybe, between spring.
I have the June, July date in my mind. That's what I think's
Okay.
legitimate.
all right. You might know, is there a sewer line on Second or Summit next to my
I
house?
bet Clinton knows. I don't think there is.
Let me check. I can't think of the name of that road that's close to your house. No, it's not near your house.
That's a good answer.
There's
Good answer
sewer
for what I'm
lines
bringing
on,
Next, I'm bringing
Riverview
up-
and Sierra.
Another quick comment. So I heard
Siesta.
12%, the 12% is
Reef.
going to incorporate the 2.8% cost of living. I'll state the obvious. That doesn't increase the 12% to cover what the rate study provided.
No, I think it
That's all.
does.
I think the rate study's 12% included
Inclusive.
a COLA.
COLA each year?
Which he assumed, which
Okay.
was 3%. And that 3% going forward in future years wasn't 3% because you need that cash. It was 3% estimating the COLA.
expect-
cover the
okay.
COLA.
Cost of living or
Right.
CPI or whatever
Right.
it was. I think.
Reef.
So I hope
And Riverview has
that you're able and that you had the data that you can take that rate study and the dashboards they have and update them for what happened this year and are you on track or not? Does 12% look like the right number or is it falling behind? I don't need an answer. I'm not looking for one. What I want to get to is my ignorance. I didn't hear this stated succinctly or this issue, and maybe it's not an issue. Septic to sewer. I'm under the impression Florida legislature or the state of Florida has been talking about it. Santa Rosa, I know, has been talking about it, and I think they just voted down something this year at least. But I didn't hear that somewhere. If I'm remembering customers between water only and water and sewer, if we went septic to sewer, everybody, that's like double or close to double the wastewater and double the revenue. But more important is, how do we pay for all that? I mean, is that issue, is it in the CIP plan somewhere? Is it anything that is being considered, or is it's so far down the road, it's further than 98 being moved or widened, so we're just not worried about it?
We typically would look for funding to do a septic to sewer expansion project. The finances don't make sense for us to go out and run sewer lines. There's no return on that.
I understand that,
So
but,
that's why it's not in our,
okay.
There are some septic to sewer projects coming up, assuming that.
yeah, we're receiving grant funding for the 2 projects on Tom King Bayou. We'll be doing those.
Okay. So what I think I'm hearing is, if there was a septic to sewer requirement, it would be only where there are lines already there.
That's correct.
Okay,
You have
I
to be
like that
within
answer.
50 feet of a
Are
line.
you talking about the state law?
You talking about
Yes,
that?
I'm talking about whatever might be levied on this water system. Do we think the only thing that would ever be levied is you already have to have the line there?
There is no pressure or regulation foreseeable that would require this utility to install wastewater anywhere.
No, he means where sewer is already available under existing state law. That's
What
exactly
do
so.
you mean?
That is what.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you asked me something, and I don't understand the question. I think you answered mine.
Oh, okay.
We're not seeing anything in the foreseeing, and what we do foresee is it would only be for where there already is septic lines. And that's the big part for me and for a lot of people, obviously.
And I think that's why the county,
It's not at your
That
house.
law already exists and it's not enforced.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a whole nother political thicket in terms of enforcement of state law. Law already exists, it's not enforced.
Okay. I think that was it. Thanks.
Thank you, Don.
To clarify
Okay.
what he said, there's no revenue outlay on the part of Holly Navarre Water System for the three-phase Tom King Bayou Septic to Sewer project. Is that a true statement?
Understanding of the agreement which we have not signed with Santa Rosa County, that is our understanding of what we've been told. Yes,
Okay, thank you.
a full grant.
All right. Anybody else? All right. Thank you, everybody, for coming in. Don, thanks for your feedback. We really appreciate it. I need a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
In a second?
Second.
Meeting is adjourned.